What if, instead of playing Pokemon by the traditional rules, we instead use a wheel to determine our fate in our next gym battle? Well, that's what this video is, and welcome to my first ever attempt at a Pokemon Black 2 wheel lock. The rule set for this wheel lock is pretty simple. You take the basic Nuzlocke rules, and instead of a Pokemon dying when it faints, instead you spin what I call a punishment wheel, which is just a wheel with a bunch of different punishments that I must follow no matter what immediately after I spin it. In addition to this, if my entire team faints in battle, I restart the run and start from square one. The last rule is that any Pokemon affected by either of the wheels must stay on the team, with the only exception being if I get the randomizer option. And yeah, that's it. So first things first, let's go choose our starter. I'm actually not too big of a fan of any of the Unova starters, but I do like Oshawott the best, as I think that in the anime it's definitely the one with the most personality. But don't get too attached because I feel like he might not be around for too long. The way this works is that before every new gym, I get to spin this wheel. Now there's no negative things on this wheel, only positive, and for our first wheel spin, we ended up getting a random item. That item ended up being the Focus Band, which I just threw on Oshawott because I had no other Pokemon at the time. I fixed that issue by catching a Purloin and then a Lillipup before having to save Lillipup's older brother from Team Plasma. Alder, why are these two kids just in your house? Don't worry about that. I realized that I forgot one of my encounters, so I went back and picked up a Pidove before going to fight Cheren. And let me tell you one thing about this gym fight. It was rough. But we started off with Oshawott versus this Patrat, which wasn't too bad as I just went for a water gun a bunch of times until eventually it went down. And then Cheren sent out his Lillipup. And this is where the problems began. Right off the bat, the Lillipup hits our Oshawott with a tackle, taking it to below half HP. Now, barring a crit, Oshawott could take one more while releasing off a water gun, which took Lillipup to the red as well. Now, here was the real problem. My own idiocracy was in full effect, as the rest of my team was at a cap of level 5, which, could I have just trained all of my team up to 13? Yes, I could have. Was I too lazy? Yes, I was. And I'm paying the price for it in this first gym battle, as our Lillipup goes down, and everything else will soon follow, leaving it just down to Oshawott once more. At this point, all I can do is watch as Tackle doesn't take out my Oshawott, and that Focus Band that we got from the wheel ended up saving this run, so that's just a testament to the power of the wheel, and there's a lot more to come in this run. You guys just gotta wait and see. We did have Pokemon faint in that battle, so we had to spin our punishment wheel, and our first punishment of 2026 ended up being a neutral Monotype run on our next gym battle. But because it's also after the first gym, which means we're on to the next, we get to spin the normal wheel as well, which we end up getting a random starter, which I then randomized on just the random Pokemon generator, and I ended up getting Mudkip, so that's definitely the best starter we could have gotten. After making it to the next city and running into this grandma yelling about whatever, seriously, what's wrong with this place? We encounter an Audino, which is not useful at all, so we just evolve our Oshawott into a Dewott and our Mudkip into Marshtomp. And seeing as these are our best two Pokemon and they share the same type, that was obviously going to be our choice going into the next gym, as our punishment wheel punished us with only using one type. Our battle with Roxy would be one of our best performances in any of the gym fights throughout this entire run, to be honest, and I was pretty proud of how this was going up to this point and thought that, hey, you know what? Maybe I wouldn't have to spin that punishment wheel too many times. Boy, was I wrong. This battle actually started off pretty good, as I taught LeBron return, so I just used return 3 times, taking out Coughing, forcing Roxy to send out her ace, Whirlipede. The game plan for this Whirlipede was very simple, and it was just to use Mudshot over and over again, lowering Whirlipede's speed down as much as possible, which meant that both LeBron and Steph were able to just bash it in, even after Roxy used a potion to heal it back up. Because we didn't lose any Pokemon, we got to dodge the punishment wheel and just spin the normal one. And this time, we got nothing! This is not the only time this happens. On the way to fight the Castelia City Gym, I ran into a Darumaka, and I also ran into a Zubat and a Grimer, and because I can only pick one of them, I just caught the Zubat. Gym Leader Berg is a specialist in bug types, and so that means this is basically a free gym, as Bug is by far the worst type in Pokemon, only rivaled by maybe Ice defensively. This battle did go quite smoothly though, as I got some air cutters off on Swadloon, forcing Berg into a Hyper Potion before switching into my Golbat, which ended up taking Swadloon down. Dwebble came in, and so did Dewott, effectively taking Dwebble down with a few Razor Shells. Last up was Berg's Leavanny, which was by far the biggest threat to my team. However, I was still confident I can get this done without losing a Mon, which I managed to do. With the second gym fight down without losing a single Pokemon, I was really feeling the momentum, and with another boost to our team from the spin, surely we were gonna... You've got to be kidding me. Once again, we got nothing. With no notable additions to the team, and certainly no help to the wheel, it was time to fight Gym Leader Elisa. Now, Elisa was a electric type Gym Leader, which meant our team didn't really match up well considering we had two water type starters, albeit Marshtomp is a ground type, but we also had a lot of flying types on our roster, so it wasn't really too good of a matchup. We did start with Liepard, which got a fake out done on Emolga, doing some decent damage before I eventually set up with Hone Claws. Now, I did think that this Liepard would do a lot more damage after the Hone Claws, but we wouldn't find out as I can only put an Oranberry on it at this point, and that didn't help, especially not after a critical hit Volt Switch from Emolga. Having to switch out, I threw in LeBron, predicting an electric type attack, which worked out perfectly before launching Mud Bombs at all of Elisa's team. At least that was the plan until I realized that Emolga is a flying type and that strategy wouldn't work. So then, I instead threw in Herdier and decided that maybe I can get a little bit of damage going once I use Crunch, which took a little bit of health out of Zebstrika, her ace Pokemon that she ended up switching in on the same turn. My decision making from this point forward was all but questionable, as I decided to throw in Marshtomp, and then after seeing the amount of damage that Zebstrika did with Pursuit, I decided it'd be a great idea to go for a Mud Bomb, which in theory would have been a good idea if I would have just hit the first one, because at this point that Zebstrika would be KO'd on our next Mud Bomb. But as you can see, that's not what happened, and it lands a critical hit Pursuit, taking down our Marshtomp, and all of a sudden, this battle is a lot more serious than previously thought. Because Marshtomp already went down, that took off a lot of the restraint that I had in this battle trying to keep everyone alive, which meant I could just start cycling through my Pokemon, boosting up and just chipping away at each of Elisa's Pokemon until eventually I won, with Draymond using a chip away on Zebstrika, taking it down. This win certainly wasn't pretty, but it did grant us our 4th gym badge and a spin on the punishment wheel. And this next spin was game-changing, as we got what I consider to be my favorite punishment because of its unholy nature: Randomize Party. Now, you might be wondering, how are you going to do this fair and square? I just went to the random Pokemon generator, made the max number of Pokemon generate to 6, and clicked Randomize. And this is the team I ended up with, so overall not too bad. Turns out that the punishment wheel turned out to not be too much of a punishment, because half of our team was water types and we had a grass type, which meant 4 of our 6 Pokemon were super effective against none other than Gym Leader Clay. And this battle went about as I would expect everyone to think it goes, as I basically just threw in Kingdra and clicked Brine 5 times, and I won the battle with no worry whatsoever. And we moved on from here. Dodging the punishment wheel meant we could just do our normal wheel spin, which ended up getting us a random Pokemon. And that Pokemon ended up being Dumbo the Non-Fan, which was somewhat useful. Before moving on to the next gym, we decided to join a tournament where we took down our rival, Charon once again, Colress, and then celebrated by evolving our Monferno into the monstrous Infernape. Our 6th gym badge would come from none other than Skyla, the flying type gym leader. This gym shouldn't have been that hard considering we just got Dumbo, which, sure, his ground type moves don't hit the flyers, but he's not weak to anything either. But, you know what, you'd be wrong, because I tried using Rollout, I believe 6 times, and he hit about 2 of those times, because he was either in love or flinching. Now, I get it, man. Love does make you blind, but does it really make you into a complete Dumbo? I mean, I guess it does. Tired of Dumbo's antics, I decided to throw in Herbert and hit a Volt Switch on the Swoobat, one-shotting it. Next up was Swanna, and with the combined power of Kingdra and Uxie, I know, I really shouldn't have been that hard, I was able to take down this Goose. Last up was Skyla Skarmory, and this was definitely the most intimidating out of the 3 Pokemon, but wasn't the biggest problem as that goes to Swanna. But one Volt Switch from Lantern, Skarmory went down, and we acquired our 6th Gym Badge. Once again, we were able to dodge the Punishment Wheel, which is far better than I expected this to go. And with our normal wheel spin, we ended up getting a random shiny Pokemon. And the way I did this was just like everything else, random Pokemon generator, and it ended up being Dusknoir, which was okay. After running into this old dude and ending his 999 win streak, it was time for our 7th gym battle against the Dragon-type tamer Drayden. This gym would definitely be our biggest test of strength, and there was really no way for me to get through this without losing at least one Pokemon, or at least so I thought, as Dusknoir takes a crunch, taking below half health, but he returns an Ice Punch, landing a critical hit one-shotting Druddigon. Dusknoir's time was up as I had to come back in as I sent out Herbert, which took a crunch on entry, along with an Earth Power from Drayden's Flygon, which did a lot of damage. I was able to return with a Surf, doing a little bit less than half, which meant I could either sack Herbert here or switch him out. And switch him out I did, as I sent in Savannah the Meganium, which took a crunch immediately, dropping her defense. After setting up a Reflect, I went down to a critical hit crunch, which means the Deathless Run was out of the way. However, I was able to send in Kingdra, and after taking Earth Power, I was able to Hydro Pump the Flygon in the face, evaporating it from this planet. Next up was arguably the icon of Pokemon Black and White, Haxorus. How this thing isn't a pseudo-legendary is honestly beyond me. I always thought it was growing up, but it's not. Anyways, it sets up a Dragon Dance, which admittedly is terrifying, as Kingdra's Twister didn't really do all too much damage. And now we were faced with a killing machine that was capable of one-shotting almost every Pokemon I had, as Savannah goes down. Our Reflect wears off, which is even worse for us, and at this point I thought I was just going to get sweeped. Aisha does manage to come in, take an Assurance to the face, and land a Yawn on the Haxorus. Now it was just a matter of time, so I decided why not go for a Future Sight, but of course I get outsped and Aisha goes down. Now all I had to do was take out Haxorus before it wakes up, and hopefully it didn't wake up on turn 1. I throw in Shay and I go for the Ice Punch, and I landed it, and just like that, we took down Drayden and his team of dragons. Y'all know the drill by now. We lost a Pokemon, which means we have to spin the wheel. And this time, for our punishment, we get, for the next gym, we can only bring 3 random Pokemon from our party. And you guys will figure out what 3 Pokemon those are once we get there, but first we have to deal with a flying pirate ship. Now surely there's just a flying pirate ship, that can't be too bad, right? Oh, that's a cannon. Oh man. Oh man! To acquire our 8th gym badge, we had to beat the Water-type gym leader Marlon. The 3 randomized Pokemon that we got from our punishment wheel wasn't much of a punishment at all, as we got to lead off with our Meganium. Admittedly, I may or may not have forgotten to go heal after taking out the trainers beforehand, which meant I only had 5 PP on Petal Dance. But this actually didn't matter all that much, as I was able to get Caracosta down to 1 HP due to its sturdy with just 1 Petal Dance. Which meant after going for another Petal Dance and hitting through the confusion, Caracosta went down without any problems. Next up, Marlon sent out his Wailord. Wailord has terrible defenses, just a lot of HP, which meant Petal Dance would likely one-shot, and that's exactly what happened. Jellicent, Marlon's last Pokemon, gave me a lot more problems, as Petal Dance wasn't enough to take it out in 1 hit, and it healed back up with a Citrus Berry. This is where the battle starts to get a little bit concerning, because after taking an ominous win from Jellicent, for some reason I decided to swap Savannah out. Now, maybe I ran out of Petal Dances. That's really the only way I can see myself swapping here. Nevertheless, I throw in Lantern, because we resist Water-type moves, but Jellicent lands in critical hit Ominous Wind. And that was probably the worst case scenario, because that forces us to switch into Aisha. Now, I wasn't thinking straight at the time, or maybe I was and was just surprised by Jellicent's power, as Ominous Wind takes Aisha to under half HP. I still go for a Psychic, thinking that it would kill Jellicent, but no, it did not, because Jellicent has crazy special defense, and between me and you, Uxie really just isn't that good. So, willing to sacrifice Uxie, I go for a Toxic. But not only does Uxie miss, Jellicent recovers back to full HP, So now, I basically was guaranteed to lose a Pokemon here, as I go for another Toxic. But Aisha lives on 8 HP. This allowed me to swap back into Savannah, and after a few turns of Toxic stalling, finally take out this oversized jellyfish, granting us our final gym badge. Our first battle of the Elite Four would be against Marshall. Marshall specialized in fighting type Pokemon, and he led with his Throw. I led with Kingdra and decided to set up some Dragon Dances, which eventually led to the takedown of Throw. This was not enough to sweep his team though, as Throw went for Bulldoze a couple of times, meaning our speed wasn't heightened, and Mienshao could just go for a high jump kick, taking us out. This was nothing to be scared of though, as we send in Uxie and get a Psychic off, which actually one-shot the Mienshao. We got some more use out of Uxie as Marshall sent out Sock, which ended up just getting Psychicked a few times and taken down, leading to Marshall's final Pokemon, Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr was a little bit annoying to take out, but nothing too bad, seeing as there's actually no wheel spins in the Elite Four leading to the champion, because I can't do half of the punishments on the wheel. I might change this in the future because, to be honest with you, this run was kind of easy, but we ended up taking down Conkeldurr, and we're moving on to the next. And the next was the Ghost-type Elite Four trainer, Chantal. Chantal leads with a Cofagrigus, and I led with my own Ghost-type, being our shiny Dusknoir. And the plan was this: punch the Cofagrigus in the face multiple times until it works. But in order for this plan to work, I first had to get around Will-O-Wisp, which was very easily bypassed by using a Rossberry, which I just consumed to get rid of the burn. And from this point forward, I was able to just Shadow Punch the Cofagrigus into its own coffin. See what I did there? Next up was the Drifblim, which was honestly a problem as it Shadow Balled our Dusknoir into Oblivion, sending him straight to where he came from. I then send out Giannis, which manages to get Drifblim below half HP with an Acrobatics, meaning that I could take him out in the next turn. Aftermath does a little bit of damage, but not enough to take me out, as Chantal sends in her Golurk. I obviously cannot stay in against this thing, as I'm pretty sure I'll just die, and there's no move that I can one-shot it with. So I opt in for Aisha and take a Brick Break on the switch-in. Now, this really wasn't too much of a problem, as I decided just to go for Toxic, but who would have guessed? I missed the Toxic with Aisha, meaning that even though I get the Toxic off on the second turn, Golurk just Shadow Punches me and Aisha goes down. But now I'm free to switch into Savannah, and from this point forward I could just click Petal Dance and wait for this behemoth to go down. Which didn't take very long because it only took one hit to take it out. Now it was time for Chantal's final Pokemon, Chandelure. This Chandelure was a problem until I got that critical hit Petal Dance, which took it down to half HP. Savannah goes down to a Fire Blast as expected, but I still had my last Pokemon, Savannah and Giannis, left to take out this Chandelure. I throw in Giannis and opt for an Acrobatics just to get a little bit of extra chip before sending in our Kingdra. I take the Fire Blast to the face and Giannis goes down, but just as predicted, I have my Kingdra left in my back pocket and I can just go in, click Brine, and just like that, Chantal is down and we're on to our third Elite Four member. And the third member we would face would be none other than the Psychic type trainer, Caitlin. Caitlin led off with her Musharna, which is a Pokemon that I really haven't seen much, and I don't even really know its stats, so I was kind of going into this a bit blind, other than this Musharna's moveset. So I opt to go for an Acrobatics turn 1, just to see how much damage that it did. Musharna goes for a Yawn, and seeing as I really didn't want my Infernape to be asleep, I switched into Kingdra. Now, this is where this game got a little bit questionable because Musharna proceeded to use Yawn a total of 9 more times, completely stalling out its PP. Eventually, it did go for Charge Beam, which meant that I could no longer just sit here and switch out until it ran out of Yawns. And seeing as it had Charge Beam of all things, it didn't really do too much damage, so I opted to set up Dragon Dance with my Kingdra. I did manage to take out the Musharna with a single Waterfall, but the Dragon Dances really weren't all that worth it because Reuniclus got subbed in next, and I only did about a little over half its HP, and it just took me out with an Energy Ball. However, I was able to switch into our Dusknoir, Shadow Punching the Reuniclus in the face, before it went down to Sigilus Shadow Ball. And Uxie met the same fate because it missed 2 Toxics and got Shadow Balled 3 times in the face, effectively giving me no value. The same cannot be said for our Infernape though, as Infernape comes in and lands an Acrobatics for exactly half of Sigilus' health, which meant we outspeed and go for another Acrobatics, taking the Sigilith out. Before Giannis goes down, we get one last acrobatics off on the Gothitelle before going down to a Psywave. But then Shay comes in, tanks a Shadow Ball off a Calm Mind boost, and then Shadow punches Gothitelle into oblivion, securing us with our third Elite Four victory. Why didn't you show the Grimsly fight? I have close combat on Infernape. It's time for the final battle of the run against none other than the champion Iris. Iris led with her Hydreigon, and I led with my Infernape, and so you could probably guess what happened. I clicked close combat and the three-headed Hydra went down. Iris, being the champion she is, sends an Aggron, which also gets one-tapped by close combat. I mean, seriously, why are we throwing in Quad Weak to fighting types? I don't get it. But she then sends in her Haxorus, which is admittedly much more of a problem, which forces me to swap out Giannis into Aisha. And Aisha, being the absolute legend that she is, contributes nothing to the team and dies so Nexus are in a critical hit Earthquake. This isn't the first time we've had to face a Haxorus though, so I throw in my Dusknoir and go for Ice Punches, which worked last time. It seems to be working this time as well, as I get one Ice Punch off for about 33% of Haxorus' health, and land another one, taking him down to the red. Now I know Iris is going to heal here, so I opt to go for another Ice Punch, even though she's going to full restore. This ends up taking Haxorus back down to just a little bit above half HP as I go down to an X Scissor. This is fine though, because we send in our Kingdra and click Dragon Pulse. Haxorus went for a Dragon Dance, which was way too greedy, as if it just went for Outrage or Dragon Claw. Our Savannah goes down immediately, but it doesn't. And then Iris sends in Archeops, which is weak to our water type moves. I don't know why she wouldn't just send in like Lapras or maybe even Druddigon here, but that's that champion mindset, you know? She's doing her best Ash impression. Druddigon comes out after we take down Archeops on one hit, and we hit Druddigon with a Dragon Pulse, taking it down to the red. Unfortunately for us, he goes for Rock Slide instead of Dragon Claw for whatever reason, and takes out our Kingdra. We then send in Giannis, and instead of close combat, this time we go for Mach Punch because of its priority, taking down Druddigon. Next up is Lapras, and I realized as I'm editing this, I could have just clicked close combat and won the match right there, but my feeble brain decided, let's go into our other Savannah. I also just realized I named both Kingdra and Meganium Savannah, so kudos to you if you noticed that before I did. But I go for Petal Dance, taking it down to about 30% HP before Petal Dance hits one more time, taking out Lapras, effectively making us the new champion of the Unova region. So, trying to get some Wingstop? Get the fuck.